Hey guys, it's Nicole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome back, Heather. It is finally, April?
Yeah, April. I know. I like, what even day is it? I feel like we're in April, almost towards the end of April. We're somewhere in there.
Every time I go on vacation and come back, I swear I don't know where I am, what I'm doing, or what life looks like for a good couple weeks.
Yes, I'm with you. And it's like that weird transitory. I mean, you have to be in it too with your kids. Like summer's almost here, but not here. And so we're kind of slowing down, but we also work. And so it's not really slowing down. So it's just like this weird season in a good way, weird in a good way season.
Yeah, I think it's like flourishing energy and upgrading energy. And I don't know, it's been a really good growth season.
Yes.
But not in a bad way.
Yeah.
I feel like I've really stepped into setting some more boundaries that normally I wouldn't have set. And even just thinking about things, I had some pretty big family stuff a couple weeks ago. And it was really hard, and it kind of threw me back into some old stuff, old patterns. And I sat down at the end of the day and I was just so burnt out from it. And I was like, I don't do this anymore. And I just had this moment where I was like, me and my family are my priority, and me overextending myself in a way because somebody else's choices is not going to be something I do anymore. And I don't need to, and I don't have to do it out of guilt, and I don't have to do it out of it being the superior thing and I'm saving everybody. I can't save people. I can only protect my family. And it was just this big moment for me of and it was so funny because I was so nervous, and I called up I called up my family members and was informing them of my choices of that what I was and wasn't willing to do. And my dad and my stepmom were just so cheering me on. And I was like, oh wow, okay, so you weren't expecting me to do what I thought you were expecting me to do anyway.
Yeah.
So just I don't know, it was just a really interesting month, and I wouldn't say it was bad, but it definitely has had its challenges of just asking me if I'm done doing old patterns in certain ways. And I've felt really good about the choices I've made with that.
Isn't it funny how it comes up though? It almost shoves shit we don't want to deal with in our faces. It almost is I feel not that the universe is an asshole, but it can be kind of an asshole because it's hey, you're going to finally get this one right. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to show up differently this time. And so while you're in it, it's so uncomfortable. But then after the fact, you're oh, this allowed me to finally put my place in a place I want to be with this situation or with these people or in this timeline or yeah. That's what I mean when I say April has been weird. It's not bad, but it's been shaky. And I'm in the same energetic place with you. It's been for me a very reflective place, but also a very place of where I have to look forward and remind myself, okay, my choices right now are gonna kind of like you with your family. It's going to dictate how I show up later. And so what am I doing right now? Because it's going to have a ripple effect. And I want to make sure that ripple is moving in a direction I'm liking. And that kind of sucks when you're in it, but it's also kind of amazing on the other side of it.
It was so funny because I do a lot of work on myself. That is something I enjoy. I dedicate myself to. I do it so that I am practicing what I preach. And just break down the scenario, not that I need to, but because I'm trying to be more vulnerable this year, right? There's somebody in my family who's in a very who's been in a very domestically violent situation for a long time. And years ago, I would have saved this person. I've gone to the house in the middle of the night. Like, I
Yeah.
have gone above and beyond. I've put money, I put time, I've put stress, I put a lot into it. And a couple of years ago, after, them choosing to continue in that dynamic, I said, okay, you're welcome to do whatever you're welcome to do. I've gone above and beyond, and I can't let this wear out my life anymore. And so I drew a line with that. And it escalated really, really bad a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
This person ended up in the hospital. Kids ended up getting taken to a different situation. And then there was a lot of threats made. So when she left the hospital, I was like, you can come here, get out of that state, get out of here, like, get out of it, come here.
Yeah.
And then there was a whole situation where he ended up committing suicide.
Oh God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It was like a wild scenario. But then after all of this, it was like, this person was like, well, can I stay with you? And I'm like, and my initial response was yes. Like, and then I was just thinking, oh my God, what did I just agree to? Because in the moment I was like back in that savior mode of like, yes, I will save you. I will take care of the kids. Like, everything will be fine and I will do it,
Yeah.
And that is a pattern that I've had my entire life, that I try to jump in scenarios where people have made choices and make that my stress to be responsible for, because I do that. That's something that I crawled into bed and I'm like, there's no way I can let this energy stay in my house. Like, this is just not a relationship that's healthy for me or for my kids, or a situation that's healthy for me and my kids. And I declared that. And it was just so, I don't know, I was really proud of myself, because the guilt of like, oh, there's children involved and there's this, and like, there was a lot of stuff pressuring me, because I do have the space and I do have the abundance right now and I do have the ability. And so I really had to sit down. And I think when you're in that space, you really have to sit down and ask yourself, what am I willing to do? And what am I not willing to do? What was I willing to do in the past that hurt me, that ended up hurting me or hurting my children or hurting people I care about, because I overextended myself emotionally, financially, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was a very heavy energy and situation in my house, for a couple days, and a lot of back and forth. But I really think this, and it all worked out, like, they're taken care of, but I had to hand her power back, that I didn't need to be the one to save her, and that I was going to let her save herself. And I would offer resources and suggestions, but not have to step in to do it. And I think that was like my biggest lesson of the month, is to be able to offer resources and options and suggestions, but not be the person to do it all.
Right. And so first off, wow, like,
yeah, it's wild
for everybody involved. Right. I'm listening and I'm thinking back to a few situations in my life. Like, my father struggled with addiction, both alcohol and drugs. There's situations with my husband and his family of like codependency, not with substances, but with people. And even me, when I was in a position of my life where I just wasn't living up to my potential. And in all of these situations, my mother, who's kind of been the savior, right?
Yeah.
Same as you, holding it together. I'm going to, whatever, said to me, and she was talking about me and my situation. We were living in my parents' house, my daughter and I, rent free. I was paying the bills, like the electric and things, but I didn't pay them a cent to live there. And she basically said to me one day, like, look, I love you so much, but I don't know if I'm helping you or harming you by allowing you to stay here like this. Because, and it shot me in the gut. And now I can look back at this time and it's like, okay, she was helping me, she was saving me, but she was also keeping me safe in my bullshit, because I didn't need to work harder. I didn't need to, you know what I mean? And so, not that it's the same situation, but it's the same thing like with my father and in his addiction. Like, she was just holding him together, holding him together, holding him together. Was she helping him? No, she was allowing him to continue. But in her mind, she was loving him, And I feel like we almost, to bring it back to the people listening, but also with ourselves, like, that is a line. You've said 2 lines that I use as mantras so far. You said, I don't do this anymore. And when I tell you, that changed the way I dealt with my body hugely, like that was what I would remind myself when I was like starting to binge or wanted to abuse myself with exercise or wanting to drink when I didn't really need to drink. Or I would just say, no, I don't do this anymore. It reminded me that's not who I am. And on the other side, am I helping or harming? Because sometimes even, with ourselves, with our relationships with ourselves, it's like we have to be aware that what we are doing right now might feel like a kind thing. It might feel like what we need, but we can also acknowledge that maybe when we look at the same situation tomorrow or a year from now or 5 years from now, we're going to be like, oh yeah, no, I was just feeding into my bullshit and that was not kind to me at all. And it's like such a wild place to be. You just realize with other people and with ourselves, sometimes what we need the most is to be set free from what is keeping us quote unquote safe.
Absolutely. And I think too, like, we can get caught in these stories of like, I'm the person who has the possibility to fix this for somebody. And like when you see potential in someone and you see opportunities and you see people being impacted negatively, you do want to jump in. Like that is human nature to want to jump in and save people. But like, I really feel, and Tony Robbins says this a lot, and I think about this a lot, that people don't do what they should do. They do what they must do.
Yes.
And that sometimes when we are helping people too much, and I said this on my TikTok the other night, I said that if you are in a relationship that is draining you financially or emotionally, you have to give that person their power back to make choices in their best and highest good. And at some point, I do believe that people will do that. Or you can offer them resources. But if you are drained from a situation, you have to really step back and ask yourself, like, am I trying to save somebody who does not want to be saved? You cannot help somebody who is unwilling to help themselves. And that goes for you on a personal level, but also anybody in your life who is just siphoning your energy or your finances. Like, ask yourself if you're helping or hurting them.
Yeah. And I mean, I can speak to that from the other side because like I said, that I was the person receiving the help. So I know what it's like on the other side of that. And I know how scary it can be to be the person who was just in your position, the mother, the caregiver, who wants to save everybody because we feel like it's our responsibility. But coming from somebody who's been on the receiving end, it really is harming them more than it's helping them because it allowed me to continue on living a subpar life, living a subpar existence, living in a way that was not in alignment with how I wish to show up in the world. But, comfort is earned, right? But there's so many times in our lives where we think we're comfortable, we're just scared. We're not working hard enough. We're not being pushed. And like you said, like in those situations, nobody's going to do what they must do because they don't need to do it. When we have this safety nets is a wonderful thing, but at some point we have to take ownership for ourselves. And so like whoever is listening, wherever you are, if you're on the receiving or the giving end, the kindest thing we can do is place the power, like you just said, in ourselves or give that person their power and be there to help and hold hands when needed, but in a way that is, in alignment with our boundaries, your boundaries, and their best interest.
Absolutely. And that's like hard to do.
Terrifying.
There were definitely moments where I was like, am I being selfish? Am I,
Yeah.
like asking all those questions, like, am I just whatever? Like, but at the end of the day, I've made choices in my life and it has worked out sometimes. It has not worked out sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, like, my only job is staying responsible for myself and staying responsible for holding the vision of what I want. And I know we were talking, you and I before this podcast, we're talking about like upgrades and like, and what does that look like? And I think that first upgrade in your life comes with owning your shit, taking responsibility, and definitely making sure you're not being siphoned out, because I don't think you can make an upgrade when you're being drained by another human. Like you just can't. And you can't be also making an upgrade when you're reliant on another person to make you happy or financially fulfill you or whatever the case might be, that is a support in a way that is inhibiting.
Yeah. We want our relationships to fulfill us. We want our relationships to push us and to make us better. But we don't want our relationships to drain us because we don't want to hold, you know what I mean? We don't want to be in a position where we're holding resentment for somebody because they're not pulling their weight, which if somebody is giving and giving and giving, eventually they're going to hit that wall and
Yeah.
it will turn to resentment. We never want to get to that place. And from the receiving end of this, we never want somebody we love or ourselves to be in a position of needing somebody, right? We want to always be able to be sufficient mentally, spiritually, financially, physically, all of these things in ourselves. And then all the other relationships in our lives are proverbial sprinkles on an already built sundae, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think this is a season where we're reflecting on that growth that we've had, the options that we've had to go back. But I hope that if you've made hard choices this year, that you're feeling really proud of yourself. Because I think the other thing that, even I just got off a call with a client, and I was just kind of reminding her how far she had actually come in a very short amount of time. Because I think day to day, it doesn't feel like we're making changes.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like we're just going through the same day over and over again. And maybe we're doing something to better ourselves a little bit. When, my favorite thing about working with people one-on-one is that I watch their changes. And it's something even as small as the way they would have responded to something differently 2 months ago.
Yeah.
The way they would have responded to a setback, the way they would have responded to somebody putting them down, the way they would have responded to a challenge that came up, like, is wholeheartedly different. And it's so funny because those are the changes you don't physically see, but they're really fucking important.
Small changes are the big changes. Like
Absolutely.
I will die on that hill. And yes, I agree. Like that's funny because that was I kind of, how I put like the quote of the day or whatever. I think that's what it said is small changes are big changes, but it was something very similar to that. And yeah, God, am I in the same world with you with coaching around nutrition, coaching around body acceptance with, a heavy emphasis on, okay, I want to accept my body, but I'm still not happy in this. So we need to make some fucking changes because that's most of my people, right? It's like, we want to go for these big and talking about seasonal changes. Like I'm looking out my window right now and it probably looks a little different than yours because I'm still in upstate where like, these trees are blooming, but it's fucking slow. Like it's like a leaf at a time. And eventually I'm going to look and it's going to be, a couple weeks later and they're going to be in full bloom and I'll have missed that process. But that's what it's like with us. Like it's like these slow, like blooming things where if I were to just stare at it, it would feel like it took forever. But like scanning out, it's literally a blink of time and it's going to be here before we know it. We just need to trust in the processes that each individual leaf will bloom type thing. That's how it is with us. We just need to understand that the big importance is the small things and it'll get there eventually if we can just keep our focus on the small things. But like you said, in our professions, we have the beautiful ability to see things from the outside in. And we know like, okay, it might not seem like a big deal that you didn't snap back at your boss or you didn't yell at your children or you chose to honor your body and not have the Sunday or you chose to, go to a spin class as opposed to yoga because you're learning to listen. Like these little baby things are so fucking huge in the long term. Like they're so huge. And it's unfortunate that we, especially as women, we don't give ourselves enough credit for those small things because they're huge.
It's so funny because like this is such a good conversation. And I think when I look back on all the changes I've made in my life, like the big things, like somebody asked me the other day because, even though I've been going through this heavy stuff, I've just been in a really good place. Like even though the heavy stuff has come, like that is life, that is what happens. And I've just been in a really good place. And somebody was like, who knew me back in a time where I was really depressed and not myself. And, and they're like, how did you get here? And I was just thinking like one of my really like religious things that I do is a bullet journal because I have things I know make me feel better.
Yeah.
I work out, I journal, I meditate, I manifest, I read 10 minutes and I do A Course in Miracles. That sounds like a lot of things, but it really takes me an hour or less. And sometimes I don't make it to all of them. But I'll know like, oh, if I've not meditated in 5 days, I can tell, I can feel it, and I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, okay, that would be a great thing to put in my day. But those few things that I just listed, like that are now regular daily habits in my life that I create space or time for, those have changed everything for me. Have I made bigger choices? Yes. Would I have made bigger choices without first taking care of myself? Probably not.
Yeah.
So all those little things, and it really comes down to like building slow trust in yourself to follow through on hearing yourself, listening to yourself, but also honoring your needs and your commitments. And it's so different than how we're trained, because our logic, like, I mean, I went to school and I got my associates and I got my bachelor's and I got my master's and I got my job, not for profit. Like, I did all of the things in the order that I thought I was meant to do them. And I was not happy when I got to that job. I worked there like 4 months and I was like, this is it for the rest of my life. I go to work, I feel drained, I come home, I get the kids in the tub and I make dinner and I go to bed and I do it again. Like, it was just like something that wasn't fulfilling. And like, one of the things I was saying to my client this morning was that like the way of joy for me anyway, has been more so of abandoning the long-term goals of where I think I should find happiness, to addressing the moment in the day of coming back within myself. What do I need today? What would be fun today? What would be interesting to try or to explore today? And I swear to fucking God, Heather, that has changed everything for me, is to not have to decide that when I get 5 years out and have this accolade that it is going to measure my worth, but every day building that slow trust. I'm somebody who follows through on the habits that I know make me feel good because I'm worth feeling good. That like those things have been immeasurable to my joy.
It's so funny how how much in alignment we are with some things. Like, that's one of the first things whenever I'm working with a client, one of the first things I suggest to them is you need to make a promise to yourself every single day and you need to keep it. But the thing is this promise has to be small. Your promise isn't going to be, I'm going to run 5 miles. Your promise is going to be, I am going to drink 3 glasses of water. I am going to eat vegetables with my lunch. I am going to wait 5 minutes before I go back for a second serving. Obviously, I'm saying food related things because, again, that's my world.
Yeah, that's my thing.
This is like, when I say like very minuscule, almost silly things, like I am going to stop and wait 20 seconds before I put my hand back in that bag of chips. That's it. That's your promise for the day. Those little tiny things, like you just said, they will change your life. They will change how you deal with yourself because you start realizing 2 things. One, I am somebody I can trust. And I know the importance of that, right?
Yeah.
Like when you are somebody you can trust, your whole fucking world changes. And I cannot express that or say that enough. I want to put that on a billboard, like become somebody you can trust. But also you see that you are somebody who can follow through. And I feel like, especially like for me, that was something I struggled with for years, is I never followed through on myself. I never did the things I set out to do. I never accomplished the things I wanted to accomplish. I had no discipline when it came for actually completing things. And I just thought it was like a flaw with me. And then I realized it was because I never gave myself a chance to succeed because I set the bar too high. And like that can make people uncomfortable, like the idea of lowering the bar, but it's not lowering our standards. And I feel like that's a very important distinction, right? Like, I'm not lowering the bar by saying set an easy goal for yourself that you can reach every day. That is keeping the bar exactly where it is, but it's also placing our eyesight, our vision, our emphasis on what we can actually control and what we can actually do, which allows us to build some motivation, some self-efficacy, some discipline, because we realize like, oh shit, I can actually do these things. And as we don't even have to think about quote unquote raising the bar back up, we're going to naturally do it as we start to build that trust in ourselves. Like, it is just, God, small things, man. They're the big things.
Well, and like achieving those smaller goals, and I'm absolutely totally in alignment with us. Like achieving those smaller goals, those are always buildable. All the things that you're willing to believe, like the amount I was willing to believe I could make in a year, like 5 years ago, is way different than the number I am willing to believe in now. And
right.
I had to lower that bar to raise it back up. And the thing is it's like a confidence builder when you're like, oh shit, I can do that. Oh, I did that. I did that every day for like a month. I've never done that before in my life every day for a month. Like it's such a self-esteem builder when you start to prove yourself right rather than, prove yourself wrong.
Right. And at the end of the day, what matters? What matters is the shit we do, not the shit we don't do. And unfortunately, many of us have been reinforced by our bullshit, myself very much included, of not doing the things that we say we want to do. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to eat better. I'm scale it back a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to get to the gym 2 days a week for a whole entire month. I am going to set my alarm earlier 1 day a week. I am going to meditate for 2 minutes, like
2 minutes. Yep.
Like those little things, like you said, they build the confidence, they build it. And then we don't even need to worry about like this. That's what people ask me. They're like, oh, okay, well then when are we going to reevaluate my goals? I'm like, just sit tight. And the trick is we never need to. I shouldn't say never, but we rarely need to, because the goals reevaluate themselves as people start to gain that confidence, gain that discipline, gain that practice. They just start happening. And next thing you know, the 3-minute meditation is a 10-minute meditation, and the 2 days a week at 3 days a week, and the vegetables at lunch is vegetables in the morning. And like these things just start happening. And before you know it, the tree has bloomed. We are the people that we set out to be. And we're like, oh, wait, when the fuck did that happen? Oh, okay. Like, yeah, Steve Jobs. Like, it's only in looking back the dots connect. We just need to be willing to make some fucking dots. And what's the thing with dots? They're really small. They're really, really small.
Well, and like I also think sometimes like the standard we set for ourselves doesn't fit in our lives. Like I used to be like, oh, an effective meditation is 20 minutes by science, right? Yeah. Science would say 20-minute meditation will solve all your problems. Mm-hmm. 20 minutes is a big commitment when you have a family, when you have stuff. So for me, like I realized that could I put it in my life? Yes. Was that the best use of my time when other things also make me feel good? So like I do a 10-minute meditation and I never do more than that. Maybe 12 minutes if I find one I really like and resonate with, or 20 minutes if I'm getting my lashes done. Or that you set originally, it doesn't actually even resonate with you. When you get into it a little bit, like maybe that 20-minute goal that you were trying to build up to isn't even necessary. It's not even like beneficial in the ways you thought it would be. You're going to get the same benefits off of 10 minutes rather than 20. So it's always and this is like where we start to, because I think when we're going through a self-help phase or we're going through self-improvement, and like for me, that's a never-ending thing. I love that. I love it. It's like a hobby for me, honestly. Mm-hmm. But I also think there can be just this thing where we start doing too much. And when you're doing too much, and like I gave you a long list of things I do, but I didn't start doing them all at once.
No, yeah.
I started with, like manifestation, or I started with working out, or I would, I've built those as a practice. But I think when we're doing too much, we feel pressured. And when we're feeling pressured, we don't get the benefits of what this is supposed to do for us anyway. So build small things, small habits into your life as they work for you. And like I said, I used to do like these crazy long hour workouts, and I did enjoy it. Like I did 80-day obsession for a long time because I loved it. It felt so good. I felt so strong. And I loved spending that hour, and like my life got busier and I was doing more stuff. And I was like, I was doing these half-hour workouts, and I kept thinking, oh, I'm cheating myself by not doing the full hour, right? I had all these weird things come up in regard to like how long I should be working out because I did enjoy the hour. So now it's like I started putting so much pressure on myself. Well, okay, if you're going to do 30, they've got to be really exhausting, hard workouts. Like, and it gets to be this really convoluted thing where I was no longer enjoying the workouts because I had made them shorter, but I had made them more intense. And like, it was like all this convolution where if I would have just taken a fucking second and said, okay, what feels right to me right now? And maybe that doesn't feel right to me 2 months ago, but right now, I need to just do like a 3-mile walk in the morning. Like that feels really good to just walk around the neighborhood in the sunshine in the morning. Or I'm going to do a 20-minute Peloton ride. Or like I've learned to adjust my habits through my intuition of what I need rather than deciding that doing these things will result in this effort. Like there are days where I don't do everything on my list because I don't fucking feel like it. And that's okay for me to not feel like it for a day or two. If I notice it's starting to impact my mood, I'll change that. But like, I don't know, listening to your intuition and what you need actually gives you the benefits of the stuff you're doing rather than forcing it onto yourself, hoping that the benefits will show up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's important, like that you pointed out, it's going to change. Like I like to think about my routines as seasonal things, right? And I don't mean like seasonal with the actual seasons, but I mean seasonal with where I'm at in my life. Like I am coming out of a season of my life that is going to look very drastic than the season I am going into. And like I know a lot of people can relate with that. Like mothers, like we have the seasons of infancy and then we have like all of these things are different. And so like that's kind of like one of the, and I say one because just like you, I'm running these through my intuition, through my highest self as well. But like one of the, lenses I'm viewing my things with is also just in the lens of like, where am I at in my life? What are the demands of my job, of my children, of my household? What can I fit in there? Because it is just so important to be realistic. And I mean, you're speaking to the, you're speaking to the choir, so to speak, about like the workout thing. Like, hi, I own a gym, and people always expect me to tell them like, no, I need you to be here 5 days a week to see a change. Well, guess what? You're never going to hear me say that. For 99% of the people, if I can get you there 2 to 3 days a week, I am fucking thrilled. And here's the thing. Those are the people who are with us for years because they don't burn themselves out. They add more. Most of them end up adding in more. I will be fully honest. But the people who can just get there a couple times a week, those are the people who do so much better than the people who come in. And again, I'm not throwing shade because I've certainly been this person that comes in, you're like, no, I'm going to be here 6 days a week. And then they do it, and they do it for maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And then we don't fucking see them for another year. Right. Like,
Yeah.
So it's so important to be realistic on what we can actually handle, because at the end of the day, and this applies for anything, this is self-care, this is how you eat, this is how you move, this is how you sleep, how you meditate. What gets done is more important than what doesn't get done. And so if getting it done 1 day a week or 2 days a week or for 20 minutes is realistic, but an hour isn't, go with what's going to actually get done. And that's so important when it comes to like upgrading, because like that's the part of like my last podcast was show yourself grace, because really that allows you to call your bullshit. Like that's where the grace comes in. The grace is being realistic and understanding, okay, I can fit this into my life and I can't fit this other thing into my life. That will allow us to truly call our bullshit and be like, oh no, but I actually do need to do this because this is what allows me to feel my best. And so even if it's only like your example, and I say only in quotations because let's be real, a 30-minute workout is still a great workout. But even if only a 30-minute workout, it's happening. So that is what is more important.
Right. Yeah. And have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Like 3 times now.
Incredible book, guys. Go out and get that. We're not getting paid. That's just a great book. In it, he talks about a guy who just committed to showing up to, like, I think Planet Fitness
5 minutes a day.
Yeah, 5 minutes a day. And just like, or I think he started with not even working out, just going to the building.
Going in and leaving.
Yeah. And so I think it's just like we underestimate the like commitment piece. And like somebody who's a very flowy person, commitment has absolutely been harder for me to learn. And I've had to learn discipline in ways that I didn't think I needed. At one point in my life, I was very like perfectionistic, get things done, had a 4.0 GPA. Like, I mean, it's I've switched kind of like my personality, and I went into this type B mode where I was just flowing all the time. And now I'm trying to find that balance of flow and get things done, And so I think I don't know, it's just like that, those commitments to yourself really, really matter. And in creating space and time for the things that are important or the things that you do want to achieve. Like when I was trying to get this book done, and get it like wrapped up in writing, like I would spend time like every couple days on it. And I finally was like, okay, so I'm reading 10 minutes a day already. What if I'm spending 10 minutes a day just on editing and finishing that? And it took me like a month with that mindset and that intention to wrap it up, what I had been trying to wrap up for 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
so the power of small chunks of time and your commitment to the things that are important to you without forcing it, with like feeling through that of what needs to happen or will feel good to happen or might be fun to happen. That's power, man. That is so, so powerful.
It is. And I mean, it's funny. That's how I wrote my book. I wrote my book by committing to writing 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. So there was time, 1,000 words. Some days it would take me 10 minutes because I'm in flow. Some days it would take me half an hour to 45. But like, regardless, it happened. And honestly, 5 days, I don't think I started there. I want to say I started with 3, but I realized 5 I could do. That's, again, I am who I am. Like, that's where you're able to really call your bullshit, because you realize, like, okay, no, actually, I do have to do this. I'm only committed to 10 minutes. I can make that happen. Like, that allowed me to like sit down with it every single day. It's only 1,000 words. If I stop at 1,000, I've done it. Right. Like, it's, or other people, like, I know other people don't like a word count. If I stop at 20 minutes, I've done it. Like, that's in James Clear talks about that as well. Like, I believe he does, at least one of the habit books that I've read. Like, you have to give yourself that out, but you have to start. And like,
Yes.
that's the great
Yes.
symbol. Like, you don't get any points for saying that you want to go to the gym. You get points for going, or anything, right? I don't get any points for saying I want to write. I get points for actually writing. As long as I've showed up, then I've earned the right to quit. And like, that's something that's important to me and has allowed me to cultivate discipline and with myself that I lacked in previous iterations of my life. Like, I have to earn the right to quit. That's something I take very seriously. Like, I get a little David Goggins with it, like maybe even a little aggressive with it, but that's how I operate. And you and I both know the importance of knowing yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I have no problem with quitting, but I have to earn that right first. But
Right.
we bar with where that is. Maybe I'm writing for 5 minutes. And then if I'm at 6 minutes and nothing is fucking coming, I've earned the right to quit. And then most of the time, you and I both know what happens. Okay, 5 minutes comes, I'm in the groove. I keep going. Same thing with out. Same thing with cleaning a closet. Same thing with anything. It's just like, okay, where's my bar? I have to meet it. After that, I can reevaluate. If I want to stop, I can stop. If I want to keep going, cool, bonus points. Like, but earn that right.
You know, even as you were talking about cleaning out the closets, like I used to be very just disorganized, messy. Like I was in school, I had kids, like young, it was all just chaotic, right? Everything. And in my physical space, it felt chaotic too. I just had stuff and things were into place and blah, blah, blah. And I used to, like, if I had cleaned, what I would do is I would pull everything out and then try to put it all back. And it was so overwhelming for me that I would get, 5, 6 hours in of trying to fix one room by completely dismantling it first. And then somebody had like said to me, just do a corner a night, just one corner a night. And like that like literally, like my house is for the most part pretty clean all the time, but only because I like think of that notion of taking something that I would have, again, dismantled, pull the cabinets out, pull the whole thing out of the closet, like, and just do one small section, because I know that that is manageable for me in the time that I have. And I don't know, just these ideas of small moments, like make it easier for yourself. Do not overcommit. Just promise yourself certain things and follow through.
And the thing is the beautiful thing is it can all be so individual. Like, you can literally say to yourself, I am going to work out for 3 minutes. And if I feel like shit after 3 minutes, I can stop. Or 10 or 20 or 5. Like, you, the listener, you, anybody, you get to set that bar. And I understand how silly it may sound, because when this idea first came to me, I was like, okay, that's dumb. It applies with everything, and it makes everything so much easier. And what I love about it too is it releases the guilt. Like, it's not, no more is that like, oh my God, I need to be cleaning out the coat closet right now. And so you can't even really relax and enjoy your life, because you have all these like shoulds on your to-do list, where if you approach it like using this method, you start it, and at least, you started it, and okay, well, I'll come back tomorrow because I just can't physically do it right now for whatever reason. My headspace with anything, then you can actually allow yourself to like go back into the energy of like relaxing or working or whatever else you're doing. It allows us to like free up that headspace.
Well, and like just as a total side note, like in human design, there are manifestors and projectors and reflectors who don't have natural energy. The generators do make up most of human design, 70%, but there are people who are built for spurts of energy. So I think what was happening for me was I would get a spurt of energy and feel like I had to do it all at once. And now I know how to preserve my energy a little bit better so I can extend it out. But you also have to like, this is such a good lesson of coming back in and going with the flow of how you work. And I just swear by human design changed my whole damn life. Like, so like just knowing yourself is such a big part of actually making the change and getting to know yourself and coming back in. And I love journaling for this too, of like reflecting on the end of the day, like what went well, what am I really proud of today, what didn't go well, or what do I wish I did differently. Like that self-reflective time to get to know yourself and how you do work and in anything that might be blocking you. Like it's so important, like I don't know. I had a session this morning and the person was talking about creating like a social media account to promote her business and that kind of stuff. And it's like the block isn't doing, it's fear, so we have to address that first. But like when we sit down and just ask ourselves these questions of like, why am I not doing this? What is the real reason? Like what's underneath the surface here?
Oh yeah. And that's a hard, Jordan Peterson, there's a lot of conflicting thoughts on him. That's not what we need to go into, but he said something that you just said that I just totally jive with. And he basically said like, don't ask yourself what's going wrong with your life unless you're really willing to answer those questions. And like, holy fuck, like that is,
Yeah.
I mean, and it sucks, right? Like that's probably why some people don't care. Well, there's a lot of reasons why people don't care for him. But again, neither here nor there. Those type of questions, they can be really, really hard to answer. And I feel like a lot of us, again, my past self, we avoid them, but then we get upset because nothing's changing. And it's like, okay, we have a choice. We deal with the discomfort of where we are, or we deal with the discomfort of figuring out why we are where we are and the discomfort of changing that thing. But like talk about growth, talk about blooming, but it's like, it doesn't need to be this big overwhelming process. In fact, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, it can't be a big overwhelming process. Like we get the big picture, we get what's going on, and then we take it all the way back down into, okay, what can I do right now? What can I do right now, this moment? What can I do today? Even if all you're doing today that is just a little bit better is drinking some water because you haven't been taking care of your physical being. Maybe it's going to bed early. Maybe it's taking a really long shower because you have so much, this is my thing, like so much clogged up, built up, pent up energy that you just need to rinse down the drain. Like maybe it's a long walk. Maybe it's a call with your friend, like anything. It doesn't need to be this big, huge meta change. Just allow yourself to do something that is going to improve your life, improve your mood, improve your energy, improve the situation for your future self, even if it's tiny, small, and then do it again tomorrow. And then do it again the day after that. And then do it again the day after that. Like that's growth. That's upgrading,
Yes. Yeah, because like I said, I think that changes feel big, but when we approach them from this way of like, what am I willing to do today for me?
Yeah.
Like what's the one small thing I can do for today? And before you know it, you've created a whole different life for yourself. But it starts with those small moments, those small shifts, those small commitments. And I think building trust and confidence in yourself through completing small tasks is the most underrated form of change in self-confidence boosting. So if I could promote anything we've just talked about, it's that. Commit one small thing to yourself today. Follow through with it every day. Whether that's just a glass of water in the morning, like whatever that is that you're willing to do. Play, have more fun, and practice those commitments, because that practicing the habit is a game changer. And I think we're in a season of change and growth. And I want to see everybody just thrive this year.
Yeah. And everybody can, like, there's no excuse not to, because there is no start point. There's no change. There is no anything that is too small. So like there's no excuse not to, because literally anything that feels intuitively good to you, intuitively better, intuitively needed, anything, that's the upgrade you need. Do it today and then ask yourself tomorrow. And it'll lead to really cool shit.
Yeah. And like, just to bring it back full circle of what we were talking about in the beginning, like those big growth moments where we say no, or we make a choice that's in our best and highest good, that comes from what we're talking about. So I know, like, I was thinking back, I was like, wow, do we have two whole different podcasts today? But yes and no, like that change, that willingness to set boundaries, that like me taking care of myself and knowing that choices that other people have made, I'm not willing to let impact my progress.
Yeah.
And that comes from, again, like getting myself into such a good place that I could recognize when something is bringing me down,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And you would not have been able to do that had it not been for all the little things, the little boundaries that with yourself and with other people.
Yeah.
They are what allowed you to do that. It's like, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love these conversations with you. And I just invited before this podcast, there will be more of me and Heather. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. And we also want to extend an opportunity to answer your guys' questions. So if you have personal questions, you can reach out to me through my Instagram, NicoleEaton.xo, through Heather, through her Instagram, which is heather.mayo.
Yep.
And then or email us, text us, whatever. If you have questions, we would love to do a whole monthly series of Q&A for you guys, answering your questions.
Yeah.
Anything.
I feel like that's the important part. Like, anybody listening obviously can see where our conversations go. So when we say ask us anything, we mean it. Like, you want to talk about manifesting? Cool. You want to talk about nutrition? Cool. You want to talk about intuition? Cool. You want to talk about anything? We got you.
Mindset, family issues, habits,
relationships. Give it to us.
We're here for it. Mm-hmm. We're here for it. But where can people connect with you?
Instagram is a great place. So Instagram is just Heather, period. So Heather.Mayo, MAIO. And my website is Heather Mayo, again, MAIO.com. So if you go there, you'll find my podcast, my stuff, my coaching services, whatever. I'm easy to find.
Yay. And thanks so much. I love this.
Yes, me too. Looking forward to the next one.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicoleEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicoleEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.